Hello and welcome to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RTC Multimedia. Rick Crabb on the line with Eric Marenbach. We're continuing our coverage of the Winter Hot Stove, including the winter leagues throughout the world, as well as some hot stove news regarding some of our favorite summer leagues. Eric, how have you been? How was your weekend? How was your week?
Hello, Ray. I'm here in beautiful Florida doing my best Australian impression of Warwick Peppybridge from the Australian broadcast. And let me tell you, as I go off, it's between the football wildcard weekend and all the Caribbean playoffs. Good stuff, dude.
They were pretty funny. I was about to tell you to hold my Fosters and do an even worse Australian impression, especially of the color commentators. Oh, go away! You know, that was... I laughed my butt up when I saw that. But in a match between the... Here's what happened, folks. In a match between the Melbourne Aces and the Canberra Cavalry, it was basically the Cavalry's home announce team announcing on television, and it was late in the seventh inning because it was the second game of a doubleheader, which was basically almost like the ninth inning. The third baseman for Melbourne made two outstanding plays along the third baseline, and on the second play, the color commentator sounded like he wanted to cuss out the Melbourne fielder, and he said, "Oh, go away! We're trying to get a rally here," or something to that effect. I was laughing too hard to hear the rest of it, I'll be honest here.
That's why I'm glad that we are on opposite sides of the house as far as myself and my parents down here in Florida. Right. Because if you could have heard me cracking up, you probably could have heard it down the street.
I bet.
It was absolutely hilarious. But, you know, I definitely appreciate the bubble situation that they're doing. And I gotta tell you, I don't think I've ever seen Australia play so many games in a week. Because normally their schedule goes at the very most 5 games a week. And that's only if there's been a previous rainout.
Right.
So these teams have been playing, you know, what was it, 8 games in 7 days?
Something like that, yeah.
And kind of playing the old triangle two-step with the 3 teams playing in the bubble there. Right. It's first for me, but you know what? I enjoyed it. And it probably, the Australians aren't used to it because they're only playing, as I said, they're used to playing 4 days a week, not 7.
Not only that, but also time-wise, it's probably screwing with them a little bit, too, because, I mean, you have the double headers, and while it's awesome for you and me and anybody in the United States and Canada who want to watch it in our time zones, over there, I mean, it's like, it looks like they are starting their games, like, early in the day, almost, maybe like at noon. First game, maybe, I guess, like noon their time or something, and then... Right. Then they have one, like, maybe later in the afternoon, early evening, but as far as time zones, it works out great. I mean, it's like, I loved it, having a game at 7 o'clock, and then even a game at 11 o'clock, I could watch a few more innings before I go to bed. I loved that. That was great. Right. It was absolutely awesome for us. Probably a lot of the people that did show up for those games, especially the day game, they were kind of taking extended lunch hours, or maybe even playing hooky from work. I don't want to advocate that in a second, but hey, this is what it is. It is what it is, and I certainly do not begrudge them of that whatsoever. I remember doing the same thing with the Orioles, Cleveland Indians wild card playoff game years ago. I think it was in 96, 97? I don't know. That was a funny story. Basically, I was working in construction down the street from there, and me and my buddy from work afterwards, we decided we were going to try to sneak into the ballpark. And we were successful, believe it or not. during a sold-out playoff game. Here's how we got in, though. We happened to go to, like, the back end of Camden Yards. Is one sweet little old lady as an usher looking the wrong way at the wrong time. We ran in, okay? We managed to find some seats in left field. They were handicapped seats that weren't being used, and, you know, it was late in the game, and we snuck in. And what happened was we snuck in right after the best part of the game. Bobby Bonilla actually hit a grand slam home run just before we literally got into the ballpark. As soon as we got into this ballpark, we heard the place going bananas, and we saw the replay on TV by one of the hot dog stands, and I was like, damn, you know, it's cool we got in, but we got in, you know, right after it, so. But that was but to get off the sidetrack a little bit, I don't blame the Australians for doing that. I would do that, too. I've done that also for Orioles opening day, but okay, we're going too far off the rails with that, but anyway.
Especially since we were going to start off with the Caribbean Leagues.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I agree, Eric. So fans of the Caribbean Leagues, I do apologize to you, and without further ado, let's proceed to take our world tour over that part of the world. I guess, where do you want to start, Eric? Did you want to start with the Dominicans, or?
Well, it's probably a good idea because I'm watching actually game one of the championship series. And it's actually funny because both teams were actually part of comeback in their respective other series, the semifinals, where the Águilas Cibaeñas were actually down, I believe, 2-0. And wound up winning that series in 7 games. And I think it was the same for the Gigantes de Cibao. Because the Circus Orientales, with their lineup, they were just kicking butt. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, the Gigantes are part of the final.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I'll take it. I don't care.
Right. Well,
right now, 4-1 Gigantes in game one of the finals, and we're in the top of the fifth.
Okay.
And not one dubbed commercial yet of either Dr. Ho or Sean Thomas, which is quite a good thing.
It's a good thing, but then again, maybe it's not. Maybe one of our 5 listeners might be someone from down there and be like, uh-oh, we better tone this down because we have these guys in America making fun of us. So maybe not. I don't know. But
I mean, up their fault.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, Dr. Ho, if you want to send some sponsorship, want to be a paid sponsorship on our program, we would definitely welcome that. I definitely would, so. Yeah.
Hey, I'll take one of those swimming goals, no problem.
Yeah, there you go. Wonder if he's related to Don Ho, you know, he knows, sings like Tiny Bubbles or something when he gives out those pills. I don't know, but anyway. Okay, so, alright, so it's 4-1, and you said that's in the championships? Is this the final round, or?
It's the final round. So, it's 4-1 top of the fifth. I noticed fan cutouts, and there could be some fans in the higher stands, but not very many. It looks like there's some, but like not in the lower bowls. So you've got cutouts. You got one guy in a horse costume.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Hey, it's the Dominican. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Especially when alcohol.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Maybe we should send the FBI down there. It sounds like some of those knuckleheads that were at the Capitol building last week. But anyway.
No.
But, okay.
Not even close.
Not even close.
But, no, I gotta tell you, when the Caribbean series goes down to the wire, and you've got these leagues in their final series, that's what you miss by not having the crowds there, because the more involved the crowds are in the postseason, it goes wild, especially in, well, I shouldn't say especially in one country over another, because all four countries that have been visible on TV, when it's finals time, I mean, you go nuts there. You've got your screaming, you're yelling, you're banging on pots and pans, your noisemakers similar to like the Karate Kid, you know, with Daniel-san and Part 2.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got everything over there. And like I might have told you in other shows, the Latinos in general, they're big on percussion instruments.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You'll hear a lot of drums banging, a lot of, I don't even remember what they call it, but it's that thing where it's very rough on the edges, and you kind of like rub it with a comb up and down. Oh,
yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, you're hearing all these sounds coming out of the thing and the whole different chants. It's kind of like a Latino version of Taiwan.
There you go. And we've also spoken about this on previous episodes, Eric. It seems like our country's the only one that, I don't want to say boring for baseball because I like going to baseball games here, but as far as fan atmosphere, I mean, going to ball games here, it's like going to church or someplace to take your kids. I mean, these other countries, I mean, they sound like they're parties. They sound like a good time. I mean,
I've said this numerous times, and I'll even bring it up again. It was when we won the World Baseball Classic in 17. And Ian Kinsler, a fellow Jew, basically says on an interview, you know, these teams got to know how we play. How we play? Please. You are such a hypocrite because you know darn well if you would have been playing for the country of your actual origin, which was Israel, and if you guys would have won, you'd be yelling, screaming, and doing all kinds of things that all these Caribbean teams and everybody else is doing. So don't even bother to go there.
Right. I mean, it's a lot like the World Cup for soccer. If it's any other country in the world, there would be like a huge heroes parade and everything. I mean, they would celebrate it much more than, I mean, here it's like, okay, the women U.S. soccer team, they win the World Cup. Oh, yeah, that's great. Put them on some Wheaties commercials, maybe Wheaties boxes, a few commercials. May or may not go to the White House, but that's about the extent of it, you know? I mean, you don't...
Right.
Move
on, get lost.
What's that?
It's like move on, get lost.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know.
I guess it's because they're not getting paid for it, or they're not getting a stipend.
Right. Well, I think they are. Because I remember they were filing like a lawsuit that they weren't getting paid as much as the men. The men's World Cup. The men who keep getting eliminated from the World Cup. Meanwhile, these women, they either win it or they're in the finals or they win gold medals. It seems like they're like they're like the best team in the world for soccer, but, you know. Yeah.
Right.
But going back to what you're saying, though, I mean, I can't wait till that's one of many reasons why I want this COVID to get over with, because I want to see, even if I can't go to these countries to watch these ball games in person, I want to watch on TV. I want to watch KBO games with Koreans, fans in them, CPBL with Taiwanese, Dominican and Mexicans and Australians and all these other leagues with their fans, because I think they bring a passion to it that we don't. Yeah. Although I will say, watching the ABL, I think they're probably the closest to America as far as the fan experience, because a lot of their games, they kind of remind me of minor league ball games on the weekends. The only thing they're missing are like the firework displays, you know, where kids go ooh and on if they haven't fallen asleep or haven't been hyped up on the cotton candy and ice cream. But, But,
Main inning stuff is good, or their pregame, but they don't really harm the postseason as much.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, let's go back to the Caribbean some more. Okay, so we're in the final stages of the Dominican Republic. What's going on with our friends in Mexico?
Okay, Mexico, the next series moves on. Actually, let's hit Venezuela first, because that just happened to be the page I was on.
Okay, apologize for that. All right.
Postseason is going to start, and you've got the semifinals is actually the Caribes de Guategui are going to take on the Navegantes de Magallanes.
Okay.
My favorite team.
Nice, okay.
First game is actually on the 13th, so it's Wednesday. And it's a 7-gamer in Maracay and Valencia, the two different ballparks.
Okay.
The other semifinal is the Cardenales de Lara against the Tigres, and that series will start on Wednesday as well.
Okay.
So we have plenty of stuff to go on. Both series seem to, as a matter of fact, yesterday I noticed a lot of games were doubleheaders just to wrap up the regular season.
Right.
They had to make up some games where Venezuela was on lockdown for, I think, a week or so.
Okay.
So they had to make up some ground and finish up the regular season. Unfortunately, they had to finish it with doubleheaders, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Kind of sounds like Japan in a way, where they were trying to get all their regular season games in. But yeah, that's interesting that they did the doubleheader route, though.
And in Mexico, I did stay up to watch the entire 7th game of the Culiacan series, which Culiacan, my Tomateros, they won their round. So they are going to be taking on the Yaquis de Ciudad Obregón. The other series, Monterrey, did really well, and they'll be taking on the Naranjeros de Hermosillo.
Very nice.
Both those start tomorrow, pretty much 7 o'clock our time or 8 o'clock, which is a good thing for me because it's not too crazy enough for me to switch channel.
Right. So you said 7 or 8 o'clock. This would be AM or PM? Because I know you watch a lot of morning baseball.
Now it's PM.
PM, okay.
So that's what I like. The only times when you really get AM games are with the Australian time difference.
Mm-hmm.
So you wind up getting games at their time, maybe 7 p.m. And if we get lucky, there's a Perth game that will start at 7 in the morning our time.
Okay.
Otherwise, with this doubleheader thing, with the bubble that happened last week, like you were saying, we're in heaven because the first game is at 7 o'clock our time, which is, businessman special their time.
Right. Well, I actually saw an article about that. We'll talk about that later, and I don't know, it might be bad news for us, but hopefully they can resolve it. I just saw the headline for the article. I haven't read it. I'll read it aloud, while we are recording, though, so... But, okay, so...
Well, I'm actually hoping that bubbles work out this week as well. And I don't even know what the game schedule is because I haven't even looked. But,
okay.
I'm looking forward to another type bubble situation where I can see 20,000 games this week.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I have a few stories regarding the ABL, and if you want to go right to there, I didn't know if you had anything else for Mexico or any of the other Central South America.
It's just interesting to see, after these playoff rounds were completed, as I told you, the losing teams, the players get dispersed into like an expansion draft,
right?
So that the teams can kind of fortify their rosters.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely hilarious to see Peter O'Brien in a different uniform than the Toros del Este. He is now playing for the Gigantes del Cibao.
Oh, jeez, it was.
So that was one of the guys that went in the dispersal draft over to Cibao. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't seen anybody from the Aguila side that came from other teams, but we shall see.
Okay.
And the same goes for Mexico, too. Losing teams have now put their players onto winning teams to fortify their next rounds.
Okay. All right.
So go for it with Australia, dude, because I'm looking forward to hearing some stuff.
Okay. Definitely. Well, let's start with, you were asking about the schedule for this coming week. I have that in front of me right now. It looks like they're going to have the bubble, they're scheduled to have the bubble. It looks like at Adelaide, the Adelaide Giant Stadium, which is called, well, actually, we have a couple of bubbles. We have, I'll tell you what we have. Okay, so today the 10th, which would be Monday their time, which actually, I think these games may have already happened. You had Perth playing against the Adelaide Giants, and then you had Perth against the Brisbane Bandits. Then on the 13th, we have at Dicolour Australia Stadium, you had the Brisbane Bandits against the Adelaide Giants. You had the Sydney Blue Sox visiting the Melbourne Aces in Melbourne Ballpark. And at Dicolour Australia Stadium, you had the Perth Heat against the Adelaide Giants. So it looks like they have like a little bubble again at Dicolour. So I guess they're rotating like these 3-team bubbles, I guess. It looks like almost with the same teams. So on the 14th, you have Perth against Brisbane again at Dicolour, Australia. In Melbourne, you have Sydney against Melbourne again. And then Brisbane at Adelaide versus Adelaide at Dicolour. So you have double headers with the three-team bubbles, and then Melbourne hosting, games as they normally would. And it looks like you have the same thing going on the 15th and the 16th as well. So, let me go to the standings real quick, and then I want to talk about some games that are being postponed in Australia. But let me hit the ABL standings since we actually have enough games, in my opinion, to actually talk about standings. We didn't for the first couple weeks because of the cancellations and the COVID and all that good stuff. And score. Alright, we're just going to go through this. I'm sorry?
I feel bad for Manny, though. They show a picture of him with his flag over his head.
Yeah. Yeah, we will talk about Mr. Ramirez. And, by the way, Sydney Blue Sox, you're welcome. Me buying a jersey of his from you, because I'm actually grateful because it could be a collector's item or it could be on your clearance rack probably within a year. Who the heck knows? Okay. All right. So we have the standings for the ABL right now. We have the Adelaide Giants at 3-1. We have the Melbourne Aces at 7-5. The Perth Heat at 3-3. The Sydney Blue Sox at 1-1. The Canberra Cavalry with our favorite announced team at 4-5. And the Brisbane Bandits at 1-4, with what might be also mine and Eric's favorite logos. Although, I don't know, I kind of like them. I like the Melbourne Aces too. And, I don't know, actually, the only logo I really don't like is one of the logos from the Sydney Blue Sox. But even that one is kind of cool because it kind of looks like looks like they copied the Baltimore Negro League, the Baltimore Black Sox. It looks almost identical to their logo, just different colors. But, which is kind of cool. Alright, so you mentioned about Manny. Alright, well, while I do that, I have another story, I'll get to that. I'm going to search for Manny while I'm reading this. We had in Adelaide, in addition to the 3-team bubble, they were supposed to have a women's baseball showcase. So they have a new baseball league that they're starting up called a League of Their Own. just like the movie. I think you and I were talking about that and joking about it for a little bit, but they're serious about it, and so here we go. Damn it. You're killing me, ABL website. All right. Adelaide Australian Women's Baseball Showcase games postponed. Adelaide's Australian Women's Baseball Showcase doubleheader presented by Valo, scheduled for Sunday, has been postponed due to the challenges presented by COVID-19. South Australia's borders do not allow people from Greater Brisbane and most of the New South Wales to enter without quarantining for 14 days, ruling a large number of players unavailable for the two games. Seems like a pattern with them, Eric. I don't know. I guess I'm wondering if... I don't know the geography of South Wales. I'm guessing it's because, I guess, travel to there is a little easier than some of these other Australian cities. And, of course, well, anyway, I think that they're canceling the games because they don't have enough women players for those teams. So, I mean, we've seen that a lot with some of the ABL teams, such as with Sydney and with Melbourne. It's like, and for a while we didn't have any games for the Adelaide Giants or the Brisbane Bandits for that same reason. They had to give them 2 weeks to get their players over. And
yeah, but at least they had future league teams because they have football. What this women's league sounds like is kind of like a formal dinner at our country club. Not enough couples that want to participate in it, whether because they're cheap or they don't feel like coming out of their little homes or whatever. They cancel it for lack of participation, and that's probably what happened with this women's league.
I hope that's not the case. And I've actually had press coverage for some women's professional soccer leagues and stuff, and I could see something like that happen. Unfortunately, a lot of women's sports get the short end of the stick for that reason. I don't know, they have a niche fan base, they have a smaller fan base, they have to work harder to get their names out there, and I commend the ABL for trying to do that with this league. I'm hoping they do have more success as the season goes on. So anyway, let's go to our friend Manny Ramirez. And it appears Manny will be being Manny somewhere else. The Blue Sox and Ramirez part ways, according to this headline. Sydney, this afternoon announced it has released Manny Ramirez from his contract. Blue Sox Chief Executive Adam Dobb said in a statement the decision was a result of the, quote, uncertainty of the season and, quote, the ongoing medical issue preventing Ramirez playing and training with the club. Quote, this is extremely disappointing for the Sydney Blue Sox, but we owe it to our fans and the other teams to make a decision now, the statement read. Ramirez did not make an appearance with Sydney. The Blue Sox have played just 2 games on December 17th and 18th with a COVID outbreak in New South Wales and subsequent border restrictions around the country preventing them taking part since. Dobb denied bringing Ramirez down under was a PR stunt. Quote, the level of investment to get him here meant this was never a PR stunt, he said. Quote, it was never our intention to have him not participate in the ABL this season. An announcement on when Sydney seasons will restart is expected soon. So rest in peace, Manny Ramirez, career in the ABL. At least it looks that way for now. But
I believe that PR stunt, that non-PR stunt thing, like I believe the Brooklyn Bridge is actually owned by myself and a bunch of Jewish conglomerates, because that's not the first time that any team has tried to bring in a superstar or somewhat of a superstar just to boost their own attendance figures. I can remember a long time ago, the Long Island Ducks of the Atlantic League for a while had Vladimir Guerrero as coming to their team. P.S. he never showed, and they were all blaming it on, like, family issues and the fact that he was running for this, that, or the other thing as far as political aspirations. You know, they were dreaming up everything in the book just to try Manny's coming. He didn't come. He was nowhere near coming.
No. Yeah, I think...
So, you know,
yeah.
a lot of this stuff is like that.
Yeah, I think we discussed that on a previous episode. Another thing this also reminds me of, also in a previous episode, we were talking about Tim Tebow when the Mets picked him up. You know, he was playing in their playing for. Yeah, he's playing for their minor league teams, especially in Birmingham and AA, and then you said he was voted to the Eastern League All-Star game, and it turned out to be a joke since he wasn't hitting for power, he wasn't hitting for average, he was just in there as a name to, you know, sell T-shirts or whatever, but...
Absolutely, total farce.
Yeah. And a bobblehead, you probably have one of his. Come on, admit it.
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay, there you go. All right.
And the only reason why I got it was because a friend of mine from Georgia was actually visiting his grandmother down in Florida. So he happened to catch a Florida State League game that was the game that they were giving him out.
Oh, nice.
At the St. Lucie Mets game. So he had a few of them, and we made a trade. Yada yada yada.
Okay, there you go. All right.
So I got him to actually sign the thing because. See, the worst part about going to a spring training game with Tim Tebow is, like, these people don't come to watch the game. They look to see just if, like, Tebow will grace them with his presence. You know, if he even makes a road trip.
Right.
So everybody hypes up, and then when they find out that Tebow's not even in the ballpark because he didn't feel like traveling from St. Lucie to wherever, you know, nobody shows up.
Right. So it winds up being basically a meet and greet disguised as a ball game, yeah. So.
Right. I just happened to have caught him during one of the last years in Disney that the Braves had, where he just happened to have been making a road trip, and I was in the right place at the right time, so he managed to sign the thing for me. So.
Nice. Okay.
I'm glad I got it out of the way and I never have to see the guy again. So that was fun.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I realize it's a bunch of hype, and for baseball, he didn't have that great of a career. Pro football, he didn't have that great of a career, but I would like to meet him, and I want to thank, mainly because he quarterbacked the Denver Broncos and defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers in that game, and, you know, I still tease Pittsburgh Steeler fan friends about that to this day, so, you know, I want to meet him for that. And I was hoping to tell him that when he played for Birmingham against the Bowie Bay Sox, but he got hurt before he got to come to Bowie, so, whatever.
Yeah, wasn't that when he broke his hamate bone in his wrist or something?
Yeah. It was, I knew it was his hand. I forgot where. But that sounds about right. Yeah, he broke his wrist, and he messed his hand up pretty bad. I do know that.
Yeah, that was like right around the time when the Mets, who absolutely sucked, were basically looking for him as a September call-up just to boost attendance figures.
Right.
But then as soon as he got injured and broke his wrist, all the Mets front office people were like, "Ah, shit! There goes our revenue for August and September."
It's like, damn it! What are we gonna do with all these T-shirts we were gonna sell?
Yeah, well, or all the Bibles that might have been upside down.
Yeah, that's true too. He was good for that. All right.
See, also been looking a little bit, not so much because they haven't been broadcasting that much.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at some of the Cuba games that could be going on this week. I think the next one, they just had them on the 10th, and they haven't shown any future scores. Let's see about standings or fixtures or something, because basically there's no other sports to talk about unless you came up with another Australian story.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like the game's coming up tomorrow.
Mm.
So that should be good.
Okay.
And while we're at it, just because I can, let's pull up the standings for it. Come on, you stupid thing. Okay, and it looks like they've played, believe it or not, and I didn't even realize it, they've played basically 74 games.
Oh, no kidding.
With Sancti Spiritus at 49 and 25. Grandma, not my grandma because she's no longer living, at 44 and 29. Then you've got Matanta, the Crocodiles, at 41 and 30. You've got the Las Charlie the Tunas, I say that in jest, at 42 and 32. That's a Greek one for Starkist. You've got Cienfuegos at 42 and 32. You've got the Industriales at 39 and 30. Santiago de Cuba at 40 and 31. Pinar del Rio at 39 and 31. Camagüey at 41 and 33. This is when I give you Spanish lessons because you have no idea how to pronounce all these things.
I appreciate that, okay.
Fun thing. Mayabeque is next at 40 and 35. Ciego de Avila at 33 and 39. Here comes the bottom feeders, people.
All right.
Villa Clara at 30 and 41. Holguin at 31 and 44. Isla Juventud at 25 and 38. Artemisas at 22 and 53. Now we're starting to get into Oryx Buffalo territory. And rounding out the rear, those prisoners at Guantanamo at 20 and 55.
Poor Guantanamo. Sorry, Charlie. But anyway.
So that's the bit in Cuba. So maybe I can get to see some games in there this week.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully we can do that. Well, folks, let's take a quick break because when we come back, we have a few hot stove items, few involving not only Major League Baseball but also the KBO. You're listening to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RTC Multimedia. We'll be right back. Alright folks, welcome back to Pro Baseball World Tour here on RTC Multimedia. Rick Crabb, Eric Marin back. And as promised, we're going to discuss some hot stove items. We'll start here in North America. We start, unfortunately, with the passing of a legend this past week. Los Angeles Dodgers manager Tommy LaSorda passed away at the age of 93. According to this article from Sports Illustrated that's in front of me, said he spent 7 decades associated with the Dodgers. And this article is from Tom Verducci from Sports Illustrated. Walking into the office of Dodgers manager Tommy LaSorda in the 1980s was like walking into a tiny neighborhood Italian restaurant. The back room of a shady saloon, the green room of a television studio, the hold of a ship in which sailors wielded profanity the way watercolors use paint, the confessional of a worn cathedral, and sometimes, if you timed it right, actually a place to talk baseball. I would stand on the threshold of that room and have no idea which realm I would be entering. LaSorda sat behind his back to the left of the open door, so you had to stick your head in and turn to the left to see if the maestro was in and conducting today's symphony of entertainment. Before you saw LaSorda, You saw the steaming pot of hot pasta on a hot plate on the apartment-sized refrigerator. Then you caught sight of him clad in his long johns, swiping away sauce from his chin with a towel between forkfuls of pasta. The wood panel walls were covered nearly floor to ceiling with grip and grin pictures and publicity portraits as some kind of celestial map of the LaSorda universe. Frank Sinatra, Al Campanis, Cary Grant, Mike Wallace, Hank Aaron, Roy Campanella, Monty Hall, Gregory Peck, Jesus Christ, not necessarily in that order. And no, he wasn't using profanity, folks. It was literally a picture of Jesus. Anyway, I thought of that room today upon hearing that Tommy LaSorda passed away at the age of 93. Suddenly, against the backdrop of a clinical, more corporate game, that room and Tommy himself seemed centuries away, not just years. It was a place where LaSorda not just met the press, but it was also where LaSorda did LaSorda. It is hard to imagine many people could have lived a fuller, happier baseball life than Tommy. No nickname, no Mr. LaSorda, just say Tommy, and you knew the subject. Tommy as in a boy's name that fits still into the 9th decade of his life. That a room and a manager like that could exist today is stuff of creative fiction. It only took one trip into the lair to understand that whatever questions you brought to the Dodgers manager were irrelevant. LaSorda didn't so much answer questions as much as he simply delivered his lounge act. His good buddy Sinatra didn't entertain requests. In the footsteps of Casey Stengel, Earl Weaver, Billy Martin, and his numerical idol, Louis DeRocher, whose number 2 became Tommy's number, LaSorda was the last celebrity manager. He hung with stars, sold products to millions of people who could not care less about baseball, and embraced the camera as if it were another in a long list of family friends. LaSorda is known as one of the greatest managers in history, not because he was a superb strategist, baseball genius, or innovator. Instead, he carved a unique place in baseball history as something more familiar to other sports, motivator. What he did with the 1988 Dodgers became legend for the power of belief. And then he did it again with the 2000 United States Olympic baseball team. LaSorda is often is identified as an ambassador of the sport, though that minimizes what baseball meant to him. He was a zealous acolyte. Let there be no doubt that in his inexhaustible selling of baseball, LaSorda made sure to sell himself. But it was this game that was the very root of his passion. LaSorda was the son of an Italian immigrant who barely spoke English and worked various blue-collar jobs around the coal country of eastern Pennsylvania. He was one of 5 sons of Sabatino and Camilla LaSorda. 4 of them went into the restaurant business. Tommy did his best to support the restaurant business, as his famous paunch proudly attested. There was a time when you could hardly watch an hour of television without seeing LaSorda selling a weight loss program. It didn't seem right, no more than Pavarotti pitching a vegan diet and yoga program. LaSorda didn't take long to revert to proper form. I apologize, I'm getting all these ads and tweets popping in here, folks. Okay. His hard-scrabble upbringing prepared LaSorda for a life of striving that brought him all the way to Hollywood. He started out pitching in Class D ball for the Conner, North Carolina Weavers, managed by a man who was born in 1903, John Lehman. LaSorda spent 11 years just in Triple-A. Wow. Pitching for the Schenectady Blue Jays one day in 1948, he threw a 15-inning complete game with 25 strikeouts and 12 walks. He was estimated to have thrown about 300 pitches. He ended the game with a walk-off single. God, that had to stink. You pitch 15 innings complete and then you lose by a single, which means, you're going to extra innings. Wow, poor guy. He pitched briefly for the Dodgers.
I can't even having LaSorda throw like 300 some odd pitches. I mean,
yeah.
Like today's.
Oh, yeah, you would never see that. You can't even see like a 7-inning game from a pitcher now. So it's crazy. Yeah. He pitched briefly for the Dodgers in 1955 until one day in June the team sent the little lefty back to the minors to make room on the roster for another left-hander, Sandy Koufax. After 14 seasons, he turned to coaching, and then in 1965 in Pocatello, Idaho, managing. The gig tapped all of LaSorda's greatest talents. He filled people with confidence. He made them laugh. He came to the ballpark every day expecting something wonderful to happen in a game that is built on the lessons of failure. None of that changed, even when LaSorda stopped managing in 1996. He didn't have the prop of that wood-paneled manager's office any longer, so LaSorda made the world his office. I served on a Hall of Fame Veterans Committee with him, and he cracked jokes, called me paisan, over-salted his speech with profanities, told stories he had told 100 times before, and generally carried on being the same LaSorda that made him famous. Few people were more comfortable in their own skin. I think of that wood-paneled office as something of a time capsule, not just a physical manifestation of all things LaSorda. It was a time when baseball had a place for storytelling, maybe some of it even true. Laughter, ruminating, off-the-record conversations, and when it came to baseball managers, a personality so big you could be a national celebrity. Years after Sinatra died, somebody took hold of his small leather phone book. LaSorda was listed on the same page as Jerry Lewis. The chairman of the boards listed 2 numbers for Tommy, one for his residence and the other for that wood-paneled office, a direct line to baseball's backstage. Tommy saw the Dodgers win 1 more World Series before he passed. Each October I would see him in his Dodgers jacket seated somewhere near the field, and I'd think of the richness of his baseball life. He spent 71 years with the Dodgers. Sabatino and Camella's kid is in the Baseball Hall of Fame, won 2 World Series, won an Olympic gold medal, and has his portrait hanging in the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery. That someone could love what he did for so long is truly a baseball life well lived. So there you have it. Rest in peace, Mr. Tommy LaSorda. Eric, I'll ask you the same question as I have when we've had other baseball greats leave us. Do you have any memories of Tommy LaSorda?
You know what? I can actually remember when the Dodgers, before the Dodgers moved actually to Arizona, we used to go to games at Dodgertown in spring training religiously. And I can remember interacting with LaSorda. He'd be like, how do I say this, sarcastically nasty.
Okay.
So he'd have this moment, you know, where he'd just look at you and it's like, yeah, what do you want? but then he'd, 2 seconds later he'd be smiling at you. So, great guy to deal with. I've seen so many confrontations, during Yankee-Dodger World Series back in the 70s and 80s. The guy was incredibly intense, one of the best managers ever. And it is kind of ironic that, a guy of his stature, being as overweight as he was in diet commercials.
Right.
Like what you were saying earlier. The moment you read that, I was just like, wait a second. This guy was like 300 pounds plus, and he's doing, like Slim Fast and stuff.
Right, yeah, I remember those, yeah.
So, when I found out about his passing, I was pretty sad. He lived a long life. I mean, there were games that we used to go to in Vero where he'd be an honorary coach as usual because he's basically, the status of the Dodgers. So he'd be sitting there by the dugout there, and of course Dodgertown in the old days had no roofs on top of their dugout, so he'd be sitting outside the dugout and all of a sudden doze off between pitches, and we'd be like, wake up, Tommy, wake up. It's, you're going to get nailed by a foul or something, and,
Right.
he'd bathe. Every once in a while, put up a finger. But we try to get him up as much as possible.
Yeah. He was telling you that he thought the Dodgers were number 1, right?
Yeah, in their own little way. And it is kind of weird that, once we all found out that Piazza was a distant relative of his. I mean, that's the only way that Piazza actually got into baseball, because if you remember way back when with the Dodgers, I believe he went in, the 62nd round?
Something like that.
stuff like that way back in the day, and he was a pretty good player, even though he was on rights.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good that you got to interact with him. I mean, I remember watching him on TV in those World Series in the 70s, against the Yankees and such, and various playoff series after that. It's funny you mentioned about him, joking about him, looking out for foul balls and stuff, because one memory I had of him was much more recent, where he was an honorary third base coach of an All-Star game. I think, if I remember correctly, I think it might have been Cal Ripken's last season, his last game or whatever. And I'm not sure if it was Cal, but someone from the American League hit a foul ball in a third base side. And it almost hit LaSorda. I mean, and I don't know if he dove or he fell or something like that, but I mean, someone that old I'm sorry?
He was probably one of the greatest bloopers of all time.
Right. I mean, in a way, it's a blooper, but in a way, you got to give him credit for as old as he was and to have reflex to get the heck out of the way for that, though, man. It was funny to watch, and it was kind of like, you kind of like laughed afterward because he wasn't seriously hurt. I mean, if he would have been caught in the face with a line drive, I could have killed him. But, I mean, the fact that, he fell and, it looked comical, so. And I think he was, like, even laughing about it afterwards. So, I mean, but, yeah, he seemed like a character. I mean, Eric, you and I were blessed with a lot of managers that were animated and colorful. I mean, you had Billy Martin in New York. I had Earl Weaver, and then, Detroit and Cincinnati had Sparky Anderson, guys like that. I mean, and just the way the game is structured now, that's one of many things, I guess, corporate baseball kind of like poo-poos on now. You don't see as much, I should say, put it that way.
Yeah, the old days of Billy Martin and now Tommy LaSorda, they're all down the waist, and all you can see now are ESPN 30 for 30s on them.
Right, pretty much. Or old light beer commercials, probably with Billy Martin and Tommy LaSorda. But yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
No. Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, they were, and then, of course, I mean, I don't know. I still crack up. I show that clip of YouTube of Earl Weaver. I don't know where they got it from. I would think it would have to be like a local news affiliate, how they would just film for highlights, but somehow they had the sound and they kept it. And it was like a game against the Detroit Tigers. You could tell by the scoreboard. It was like the top of the first. I mean, it just started, and I don't know. It's like it was maybe like 20,000 people at Memorial Stadium, but it sounded like 50,000 because they let people bring in beer at the time, and it kind of amplified things a little bit. But they basically had a play where it was a grounder, and they threw to first base, and the base runner got in on time, and it was like Eddie Murray was complaining. He said, "No, the throw got here before," basically saying, he was out. And he was arguing with the umpire about it. And then Eddie Murray, he caught a lot of grief from press here in Baltimore, but he was nice to any kid who would ever meet him. I've got his autograph a couple of times. Real nice guy. But he's usually real soft-spoken. So to hear Eddie Murray give an umpire grief, you kind of had to figure, maybe the umpire screwed up. But anyway, Earl Weaver got right in the umpire's face, and he peppered him with profanities. He just basically said, "You're only here for one reason. You come here all the time. You're here to fuck us. You do this every goddamn game." And he was going off. I mean, you can see on TV, usually you didn't hear what Earl Weaver was saying. You can tell he was like red in the face and belly butting him and everything else. I mean, it was comical, but. Ah, God. And then the umpire actually got a sick burn back on him, though. He said, "Yeah, you're good at fucking up games." It's like, you mean how you fuck up World Series? It's like, I've won more games than I've lost, all this stuff. And it's like, you're no good. Go fucking, he was going off. it was just absolutely comical. But anyway, as the 12-year-old Oriole fan still enjoys me, but
the good old days of baseball.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, we have some other news in the world of Major League Baseball. I think we spoke about this a little bit, but this is a more recent story about it. Coming from Axios, about Major League Baseball unveils trimmed-down minor leagues. Major League Baseball unveiled its restructured minor league system last week, with all 30 big league clubs extending invitations to 4 farm teams apiece. How it works. Under the newly configured system, each franchise will have a AAA team, a AA team, I-Class A team, and a Low-Class A team, along with a variety of developmental teams. In an effort to streamline geographical footprints, affiliations were also shifted among franchises. For example, the Nationals AAA affiliate shifted from Fresno, California to Rochester, New York, while the Twins AAA affiliate shifted from Rochester to New York to across the river in St. Paul. That's interesting, because don't they have an independent team there, Eric? But just interrupt. But
yeah, look, the Saints are now the AAA version
of the Twins.
Twins now. So
oh, okay, interesting.
All the independent leagues are being labeled now. What did they label?
The MLB Draft League, is that what it's called? Or is that something else?
But they labeled them all as partner leagues now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's more or less, affiliated but unaffiliated. So it gave certain teams the right to switch leagues and become affiliated ball. It's so confusing. I couldn't even handle it. But, when you get teams like, Sugarland BK.
Right.
Went from Atlantic League to now Houston's AAA.
Yeah.
You've got, the Hudson Valley Renegades went from low A. No, I'm sorry. The Somerset Patriots went from the Atlantic League to now Yankees AA.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
So everything as far as independent leagues, partner leagues, it's such a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the indie guys are kind of PO'd about it.
Right. And I'm sure a lot of the cities are too, but his Axios article actually goes further into it. They're going to try to explain it, hopefully, for us, but let's see. Why it matters.
You can explain it. I have no clue.
Okay, well, they're going to say it was some of the teams. In fact, they just mentioned the St. Paul's team here. It says, why it matters. The number of affiliated minor league teams has been reduced from 160 to 120, altering the fate of 40 clubs. Good news for some. After 3 decades as one of America's most successful independent teams, the St. Paul Saints are now the Twins AAA affiliate. It's exciting news for the Saints, and the 10.6-mile drive between stadiums means the Twins can now call up and send down players with ease. Bad news for others. The Salem Kaiser Oregon Volcanoes found out via social media that they would no longer be the Giants' Class A affiliate. For a partnership of 26 years to end that way feels like a slap in the face, said CEO Mickey Walker. I think heartbreak is an appropriate term. The big picture. On top of the minor league shakeup, MLB is also forming its own amateur leagues for college players, a decision that has sent a chill through Woodback college summer circuits from Cape Cod to Alaska. Let's see. Okay, so I thought the article would go more into detail with that, but apparently they didn't, so let's see. Yeah.
No, and apparently what is transpiring is they've got, instead of more or less an independent league, what they call a draft league, where some of these lower players are coming into the league. Like, the Trenton Thunder for years was the Yankee franchise.
Right.
Originally, it was supposed to be where they were going to go be the Philadelphia Phillies AA franchise, but then all of a sudden this draft league comes in, and Trenton's in there. Now, apparently, there are a whole bunch of different regions where this draft league is going to take place, and I'm not too familiar but it's completely regional.
Right. I know that my beloved Frederick Keys are no longer an Oriole affiliate, and they're in this MLB draft league, whatever. So, I mean, we'll see what's going on with that. But, yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it just gives me, more of an opportunity to see the Yankees in higher affiliated ball, with the addition of Hudson Valley being a Yankee franchise in high A versus the low A, which is more or less the Florida State League, which pretty much draws 100 fans a game anyway.
Right. Well, Hudson Valley, weren't they in New York Penn League for a while too, or am I thinking of another team?
Yeah, but here's the thing. They may, in principle, be a short season A team.
Right.
But that franchise used to draw. I mean, they were constantly, I believe the capacity of the ballpark was somewhere around 8,000 or 9,000.
Okay.
They were always 3/4 full. And it didn't matter who their opposition was.
Right.
Because the front office over there, they marketed right. I mean, anywhere from their general manager, who was basically their PA announcer.
Oh, okay.
And, a guy by the name of Rick Zolder. And they knew their promos. They knew what to do on the field as far as between innings. They knew what to do in-game. The whole scenario up there was fantastic, and that's why for years you always wondered, hey, this concept worked. Why are they only a short season?
Right.
So with this restructuring of the minor leagues, I think that was probably one of the best moves ever, seeing a franchise like that go to full season. You could say the same for teams in that league like the Cyclones.
Right.
Who also used to draw pretty good crowds, not only against the Yankees, but against other teams as well, because of the area where it is around the amusement park over there.
Right, yeah, but near the beach, and plus, I'm sure it drew, I mean, they're close to a lot of the Mets fans, too, so, I mean, they want to see their favorite team's players as well, but, yeah. I've never, closest I've been to a Cyclones game, I've been to Coney Island, and I don't think the Cyclones had a game at night, and my girlfriend didn't want to go because we went to a Mets game the night before. I wanted to hit both, but she was like, no, we've seen enough baseball. I'm like, no. Yes, dear. But,
That's why it's my single.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably why I'm in that boat, too, among other reasons, but, speaking of the Mets, they made a big splash where they had a little trade with the Cleveland Indians, and they have Francisco Lindor heading over there. I got a story here from Yahoo Sports and AP from a columnist named Ronald Bloom saying, Francisco Lindor, all smiles after trade from Indians to Mets. New York. Francisco Lindor smiled widely for a full 40 minutes, enthralled to join a New York Mets team bulking up under new owner Stephen Cohen. They say it's probably contagious, the new Mets new shortstop said. I'm living my dream. I'm living the life I always wanted to, so I don't see why not. Cleveland traded the four-time All-Star to New York along with pitcher Carlos Carrasco on Thursday for infielders Andres Jimenez, and Ahmed Rosario, plus a pair of minor league prospects, right-hander Josh Wolf and outfielder Isaiah Green. I'm excited to be with the Mets organization. I'm not against the long term. I'm not against it, Lindor said in a news conference from Florida, wearing his new team's royal blue cap. It has to make sense for both sides. Lindor said he would not want to negotiate once he starts spring training, preferring to focus then on playing and hopefully winning. He earned $6,481,481 prorated from a $17.5 million salary last year, is eligible for arbitration next month, and can become a free agent after this season. His agent, Dave Mater had discussed a long-term deal with the Indians. Quote, "We talked and we gave it our best efforts on both sides," Lindor said. But the Indians did not think they could afford a multi-year contract with the 27-year-old, so they chose to make the trade. Cohen, a billionaire hedge fund manager, brought the Mets on November 6th from the Wilpon and Katz families. The Mets had the third highest payroll last year behind the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers and New York Yankees. And the Mets offseason has included giving pitcher Marcus Stroman an $18.9 million one-year deal. Injured right-hander Noah Syndergaard a $9.7 million one-year contract. Right-hander reliever Trevor May a $15.5 million two-year agreement. And catcher James McCann a $40.6 million four-year deal. Outfielder George Springer and second baseman DJ LeMahieu remain possibilities among free agents. "I'm one of the faces. I embrace that," Lindor said. "I have never been the type of player where it's like, follow me, I'll lead you to the success. No, I've always been a person that together we are all going to achieve what we want. And that's what I want to bring. That's what I'm bringing. I'm bringing my, hey guys, let's find a way to do this together. I know you guys have a great thing going on. I just want to be a little piece of that puzzle." He hoped to remain with the Indians, but said they didn't come up with that number. He praised Cleveland, but looked ahead enthusiastically. "Cleveland is a great place, is a great city. I love the Indians, I love everybody in the organization," he said, while knowing, if there is something missing, we're going to get it, and we're going to find a way. Lindor finds himself in a situation similar to that of outfielder Mookie Betts, traded from Boston to the Dodgers before last season, with one season of club control remaining. Betts in Los Angeles agreed in July to a $365 million 12-year contract. If Lindor agrees to a long-term deal, it likely would become the largest in Mets history, surpassing the $138 million 8-year agreement of Captain David Wright that covered 2013 to 2020. Lindor's first thought on what he wanted to do when he gets to New York and had nothing to do with baseball, though. "Pizza," he said. So there you have it. Lindor is coming to the Mets, and I spoke to you about this off the air, Eric. We were talking about like how Manny Ramirez was selling his own line of merchandise in the Sydney Blue Sox, and Tim Tebow was kind of doing that with the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. It looks like Lindor is kind of doing the same thing with the Mets, according to their website. I stumbled onto that accidentally. Sounds like he might be a good fit for the Mets. It sounds like he'll be a fun player to watch, but, we'll see. I'm kind of a little worried for the Mets, though, because supposedly this guy Cohen is supposed to be a big spender and a good owner, good, solid financially, but he thought the same thing about Bernie Madoff, too. So, it sounds like he made similar types of money, so until we found out what happened with the Madoff family, but, ugh.
Well, here's your problem that I see with that whole Lindor deal.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice in the deal, the Mets gave Cleveland two middle infielders. They gave Andres Jimenez, and they also gave Ahmed Rosario, which basically leaves the Mets in a mundo hole, because where are you going to put Jeff McNeil? Either at second or third. And that's your only other middle infielder, because they don't have anybody decent in the minor leagues. They did also pick up Brandon Drury in a little one-year pillow deal for I think they said $2 million if he makes the club.
Right.
If you're gonna stick him in there, along with just McNeil, if either one of them get hurt, you've depleted your entire minor league system with the subtraction of Jimenez. You're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So he made the big splash with Lindor.
Right.
Did give up two middle infielders, and your depth is not there.
Yeah, I was listening to a sports talk radio host over the weekend. He works in a Baltimore station, but he's originally from Brooklyn in the New York area. He used to be police commissioner in New York and also in Baltimore named Ed Norris. But he was a lifelong Mets fan, and he was kind of worried about... One thing he had said that the Mets always operated like a small market team where they would be going for one big player like this, and then the rest they would have to, like, hopefully get some people from their minor league system, and then they can't afford to keep the rest of them because of other stupid deals that they've made, you know. Hello, Bobby Bonilla, you know. But, yeah, so, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm sure Mets fans are kind of optimistic, but they're kind of like in the back of their mind thinking, oh shit, this might happen again. Who knows? But, anyway.
But, you know, it's like I said. You hear the name Francisco Lindor, and everybody's thinking, okay, World Series championship. But you don't sit back and, you know, analyze it like me, saying, all right, now that you've got Lindor, what do you got around him?
Right. I mean, even if he was a utility player, I mean, he can only play one position at a time, you know, and he's not. But, yeah. So you don't look at the consequences, but yeah.
We shall see what happens.
We'll see.
The thing that bothered me, and I think we went over this last week,
mm-hmm.
You know, the big thing that we were all talking about as far as KBO-wise, which the other posted player who's supposed to make a big splash in MLB, Sungwon Na,
right,
whose agent is the lovely and talented, and I say that term sarcastically, Scott Lawrence.
Right.
He did not even get a sniff from any major league club. His posting period ran out, and he's back in Korea. And from what I understand, this may be his last big shot as far as, like, trying to go there. I don't know whether it's his age. I don't know whether it's his agent or lack of popularity. But, I don't know, somebody missed the boat.
I was going to say, I mean, Daniel Kim worked with the Mets for a while. I wonder if maybe he had like a little strike with him. Maybe he could talk to somebody and to bring him over. I'm kind of surprised at that in a way, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, the posting period's up, and he's back with the Dinos.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, I was actually listening to Daniel's show, and I help out with the chat a little bit. Well, I chat a little with some of the guys that can speak English.
Right.
Or at least write push on the site.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the guys was actually saying that this might be a swan song, that they might not, it's not that they won't be able to post them again, but I don't know. But something's wrong in Denmark, put it that way.
Right.
And I think Boris should take a big hit for that.
Yeah.
And getting represented by, even though he's a slimy little SOB, one of the best agents in the biz, and you don't even get a sniff when you're posted.
Right.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, maybe something's wrong. Maybe it's just a bias against the KBO or other international leagues, or I don't know. Maybe something where they're scouting or something. It is kind of strange that he wouldn't be able to garner interest to any of the 32 teams, but we'll see. Well, speaking of the KBO, got a couple of stories regarding them, and regarding a place where the man we hold in high regard, Daniel Kim, worked for. This is a story coming from the Yonhap news agency in South Korea. It says, new KBO commissioner hoping for another broadcast deal with ESPN. This was as of January 5th. South Korean baseball enjoyed an unprecedented level of international exposure last year, thanks to daily broadcasts in the U.S. cable giant ESPN and its affiliates around the world. And the new head of the Korean baseball organization said Tuesday he hopes the partnership will be extended for another season. Having our brand of baseball introduced to the world through ESPN last year was quite significant, said Chung Ji-tak in a press conference following his inauguration ceremony Tuesday. We'll look to maintain and expand our deal with ESPN. With the start of the Major League Baseball season pushed back by nearly 4 months due to the COVID-19 pandemic, ESPN, one of the national MLB rights holders, sought to fill airtime with KBO games. ESPN's deal with ICLAT, the Korean company with international distribution rights to KBO games, was announced on May 4th last year, the eve of KBO's opening day. The truncated MLB season started in July, but ESPN continued to carry KBO games, 1 game per day during the regular season and all postseason games in November. Quote, we have to go beyond just promoting Korean baseball, Chung said. We have to blaze new trails and promote our culture all over the world. Following Chung's press conference, a KBO official clarified that any international broadcast deal would ultimately be up to ICLAT, but said the league is definitely interested in reaching viewers outside South Korea once again. Even if it's not through ESPN, we'll still try to find ways to market our games internationally, the official said. If the start of the Major League season is delayed again this year, maybe ESPN will show interest in KBO games again. And again, that was from the Yonhap news agency. I'd like to throw in one comment, Eric, as far as an American network if ESPN doesn't bite. I want to nominate Nickelodeon. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights of the game, NFL playoff game that they covered, but I mean, they did some crazy stuff with that. I mean, it's like they tried to incorporate their kids' audience. They had this one thing where Saints player scored a touchdown. They had this graphic made it look like he was slimed, and I don't know. They were trying like different innovative things. I don't know, maybe. And actually, for Nickelodeon, it would be perfect because of the KBO time slot. I mean, they would be on like 4:35 in the morning, kind of like what they would have their Nick at Night rerun programming with. I mean, most kids aren't up that early, so I mean, adults getting up to go to work or getting their kids ready for school can watch some baseball before, you know, they send little Butchie off to school. So, I don't know.
It's funny you mention it because I knew that the games were on Nickelodeon, but, you know, you get so used to watching it on a pro network like CBS, NBC, ESPN, whatever. I kind of wish I would have been able to tune into that.
I think I did the same thing you did. I watched it it was also on Fox with the regular broadcast crew, but I saw some of the highlights of what Nickelodeon did, and I don't know. It was kind of funny, but of course the funniest part though was, and it was unfortunate especially for that network, they had a call go against the Chicago Bears, and you heard and while the referee was announcing the penalty, you hear the Chicago Bears player say, "What the fuck?" You know, it's like on national TV, you know, on Fox and on Nickelodeon. So it's like, Daddy, did that player say a bad word? Yes, he did, son. Okay, go back to your Pokemon, you know. But I don't know. But out of all seriousness, Eric, I would like to see the KBO have another American network, even if it isn't ESPN. I kind of hope in a way it's not ESPN, so we don't have to hear doggone Boogjiambi again, but...
Well, I mean, you gotta figure that they've got to, you know, get somewhat professional announcers.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, you know, if it is an ESPN type, that's who you're stuck with.
Right.
Whoever kind of thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't actually mind it if they did it on a network like Nickelodeon where you had Ren and Stimpy as your announcers.
Or like SpongeBob or something.
Well, yeah, SpongeBob and Patrick.
Mm.
But you've got to be able to put games in the native language on an international network and do like an SAP thing.
Mm-hmm.
That'll throw the game over.
That will be interesting. Yeah.
That's just my opinion because, in baseball you have your playoff games and such, not only in English but in Spanish, like on Fox Deportes or ESPN Deportes. Just to grow another niche in the game, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the KBO, CPBL, NPB, any of those leagues, in their native tongue, you'll get a whole new crop of viewers just because of the language.
I would imagine, especially like in the South Pacific, but the Pacific Coast, I should say. But yeah, most definitely. But actually, there are other networks they can go. It's like maybe like FS1 or like NBC Sports Network, somebody like that. I think either of them could do a good job with KBO too. NBC especially, since you mentioned the Premier League, they do a lot of their broadcasts, and like them, there's a difference of the time zone, so it's like you could be watching soccer on 7 or 10 o'clock on a Saturday or Sunday morning, on our time. So they're kind of used to that in a way, I suppose. But
even if you didn't want to do it, like on your major network, do it on your ESPN News or ESPN News or kind of thing. So this way, you've still got the contract money, and at least you've got another avenue of sports in your conglomerate of networks.
Right.
So maybe they do it that way. I don't know.
I hope they do that, because we kind of joked with that, and I know you've actually spoke to people, or emailed with people, the Durham Bulls, that kind of thing. If this COVID thing clears up, man, that would be awesome if we could even, get like Durham or like these minor league cities in America to like air a ball game or something at a ballpark. Just go somewhere to eat breakfast and watch a KBO game. I'd definitely be down for that. So,
well, honestly, I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
No.
Unless you get a total shutdown of your minor leagues, I don't think what happened with Durham and NC, with people jumping on that bandwagon, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But
no. That's a shame, You might have some people jumping because they won the title, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it introduced some new American fans. I'm one of them, happy to say. You've been watching them for years before that, but I hope they still keep a presence in other countries besides Korea. If not, I'll be saving up and giving Japan Ball a call and take a trip over there. But
Well, the only team that I would consider actually having somewhat of a relationship with, believe it or not, is NC, because of the corporate sponsorship with NC Software.
Oh, okay.
So maybe they could do something with that. Otherwise, I don't see any of the things catching on.
And I think you had a little bit of that with some of the announcing they were talking about it. It was like, basically, I don't know, some of the announcers were like, okay, well, Samsung, if you give me a new phone, I might cheer for you, or Kia, if you give me a new car, I'll cheer for you. And then I think Eduardo Perez joked that it's like, well, I was going to go with Samsung, but you know what? I bought an LG refrigerator, so I'm going to cheer for them. But along those same lines, you're right. It's like people, I think that's how some people choose who they cheer for. People who watch NASCAR. I think they cheer because it's like, oh yeah, I like this guy because he drives a Hostess Twinkies car or something. It's just. I thought it was the funniest thing, though. It was like, I watched NASCAR for a little bit. Mark Martin drove a car for Viagra, and I thought that was the funniest damn thing. He's driving for that. It's like, damn, these NASCAR guys will take money from anybody. But, so it's like, so I wound up buying all his gear because of that. I had, like, hats, jackets, T-shirts with a friggin' Viagra logo on it. But, so I thought it was hilarious. But anyway.
Let's see. It looks like we're close to the end of the game here. Gigante Cibao still hold a 4-1 lead, and it's in the bottom of the 8th.
Mm.
So that looks like a game 1 victory for the Gigantes, almost.
All right.
Yeah, you come up with a major top of the ninth.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely keep track of that, and probably get the end of that before the end of the episode. I do have one more story from the KBO before we wrap things up. Again, from the Yonhap News Agency. It says, KBO club exec apologizes for incident, withdraws legal action against the league. This is from reporter Yo Ji-ho from the Yonhap News Agency. Seoul. The South Korean baseball club executive under fire for disrespecting his athletes apologized for his action Thursday, while also withdrawing plans to take legal action against the league office for suspending him. Herman chairman of the board for the Kiwoom Heroes of the Korea Baseball Organization, issued a statement through the club apologizing to baseball fans and the rest of the league for a much-publicized incident from last year. And they show an interesting picture where he's a chairman. He's actually he's playing in an inter-squad game in Peoria, Arizona, oddly enough, in 2019. A millionaire-turned-baseball executive, caused a stir in October when it was belatedly revealed through a TV news report that he had forced the Heroes minor league players to stay late after their practice in June 2019, so he could play catch and show off his knuckleball in live batting practice. KBO fans were up in arms over Her's apparent lack of respect for professional athletes and accused him of using his authority to turn the baseball field into his personal playground. Quote, I'd like to offer my belated apology to players, officials, and fans that I have inconvenienced with my action, Her said. As the chairman of the board of a baseball club, it was extremely inappropriate and careless behavior. I am also sorry that I had missed the timing of my apology. The June incident made news after an anonymous tip from a baseball fan who filmed Her's action on his smartphone and sent the clip to the TV station. In early December, former Kiwoom captain Lee Tuk-kyun claimed that the Heroes had attempted to retaliate against the tipster based on their closed-circuit TV footage. Lee also said the Heroes asked him to help identify and track down that anonymous fan. The Heroes rejected Lee's allegations, but the KBO reviewed those claims. The league's disciplinary committee initially settled on a warning for Her, but outgoing Commissioner Chung Eun-chan was adamant that Her had to be disciplined. Chung overruled the committee and handed down a 2-month suspension to Her on Monday. The Heroes reported Tuesday that they would challenge that decision in court, but Her retreated Thursday. The Korea Professional Baseball Players Association and the Korea Pro Baseball Players Alumni Association both voiced their support for the KBO suspension of Her earlier this week. Quote, I don't think it helps our league to add more fuel to the situation, Her said. I will humbly accept advice from the KPBPA and other organizations, and I promise you something like this will never happen again. So you had a guy basically keeping the minor leagues out so he can play baseball with them. Now that's, well, it's kind of an abuse of power, I would say. I don't blame the fans for being upset about that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's pretty shocking there.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't see them getting away with that here. I mean, it's probably, players have too much money, and unions are, I imagine they are more powerful here than they are in Korea, I suppose. But, yeah. Okay, well, Eric, and folks, I think we're going to wrap things up in a little bit. Eric, do you have an update on the play?
Still going. Bottom of the 8th. Peter O'Brien just walked for the Gigantes. It's first and second. How many out? I see nobody out, so I don't think we're going to catch the end of the show before the end of the game.
Okay. And refresh my memory, I think you said it at the beginning of the broadcast. You said this is a 7-game series. What game are they? Is this the first game in that series, or?
Yeah, this is the first game.
Okay. All right. So we may or may not have a...
We'll have new champion in the Dominicans, and then the finals will actually start in Mexico, and maybe in Venezuela as well.
And then hopefully we'll have some ABL playing, you know, provided they don't have more games canceled due to COVID. And we'll have some hot stove before we can get to, hopefully, spring training for our summer leagues and the MLB and KBO and MPB, CPBL, all the good spring and summer leagues that we all enjoy. So,
the interesting thing about Australia, which I noticed as we were going through the whole thing, last week you had games pretty much all week.
Mm-hmm.
This week will actually spill into next week, where if you looked at the schedule, the games will start on Thursday as normal.
Right.
But they will carry into, like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and next week, so that next week is the full week like we had last week.
Right.
So that should be something cool for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And actually, as a little bit of a side note, I'm not exactly sure how they're doing it, but it's the annual MSDL Winter Classic, as we call it. The Men's Senior Baseball League. It's up in 3 different divisions, 35 and over, 45 and over, and 54 and over. The usual team that I follow, which is the East Coast Cardinals, they are not coming because their manager has some business to take care of in Virginia. So that team is kind of disbanded and or being dispersed onto some other teams that are within the league. That's the tournament that I might have mentioned a few times where Doug Flutie will show up.
Oh, okay.
With his own team. I don't even know if they're coming. I haven't seen, like, the whole thing. I'll find out on Friday when I go.
And where will that tournament be? Will that be down near you in Florida now, or where you normally...
It's a little over 2 hours for me in a town called Vieira, which is where the Nationals used to hold their spring training.
Oh, okay.
Before they moved to West Palm. So they moved it to Vieira last year. It's apparently doing well over there, so they're going to keep it over there.
Nice. Okay.
And it's cheap. It's only like $40 to view as many games as you want for the entire weekend. Championship being on Martin Luther King Day. But being the fact that the team that I usually watch isn't going to be there as a whole, since I don't know necessarily who's going to be around and where, I might just go for a couple of days, just to hang out in half-decent weather and see if any guys I know actually show up.
All right, there you go. Yeah. And find out and bring some bobbleheads with you just in case. And a pen, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, I doubt Dante Pichette will show up. He hasn't shown up in a while since I had him sign something a couple of years ago. Flutie always signs for me, whether it's a photo, a bobblehead, or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I like Flutie. I've seen him play a few times. Oddly enough, he's from my neck of the woods in the Baltimore suburb of Catonsville, but I've only seen him against opponents of Baltimore teams. I've seen him in the USFL where he played for the Donald Trump-owned New Jersey Generals against the wrongly named Baltimore Stars because they still practice in Philadelphia. They played their games in College Park, but they called themselves Baltimore because the Orioles owner was a dick and wouldn't let them play at Memorial Stadium. Then I saw him again in the CFL with the Calgary Stampede against the Baltimore Stallions. And then I saw him in the NFL with Buffalo against the Ravens. So I saw him 3 different times, but, it's like... Yeah.
Was it with the Argos?
He was with the Argos, too. I think he went to the Argos, it was either before or after that. And I think his brother also played in that league, too, either with the Argos or with British Columbia, maybe. But
sure where Darren played.
Yeah. But, when I saw him in person, he was with Calgary. And it was weird because what hurt him in the NFL, and the USFL helped him in the CFL because he had more room to run, and he was a slippery little somebody, and he was hard to catch. He was really good scrambler.
Yeah, and he has not thrown an inch since his football playing days. So to see him on the baseball diamond playing either second base or occasionally pitching, he hasn't grown.
All right. Well, I mean, if you happen to see him in one of those games, if you have like some merch for him or something, I don't know, talk to me off the air. I'll pay you back if you get him to sign something for me. I'm a fan of Flutie's. I like him, so you can do that.
Usually what happens is, if I'll see somebody the first day that I know, I'll bring stuff the second day.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's two and a half hours ride each way, so I don't mind the trip, and like I said, it gives me something to do.
There you go. All right. Okay, well, that sounds like a good time, so, yeah, definitely keep us posted on that for sure. Okay. All right, folks, well, listen, we're going to wrap this week's edition of Pro Baseball World Tour. Thank you once again for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.